Hey everyone, welcome to a basic build guide for Monk in Baldur's Gate 3. The intention with this build is to get through balanced and tactician difficulty with no problem. It's going to do a lot of single target damage, and it's going to have very high mobility through Monk abilities and potentially through racial abilities depending on the race that you go with. Starting off with character creation, I've picked Lizelle for this because she's a Githyanki already in your party, and I wanted my main to be a different build, but Githyanki is a good choice to pick for this build because of their racial abilities, like their long jumping and Misty Step, which they get for free. So that's typically a good one to go with, but you can pick whatever you want. It's not a big deal breaker. Moving on to the ability score. Here's what I have for ability score. You don't have to pick these, but I think that this mixes well with unarmored defense bonus that monks get, which combines your dex modifier and your wisdom modifier. So I'm going to leave these here for now and then take a ability score improvement as a first feat later to bump those up. Moving on to classes, we're going to have 6 levels in open hand monk, 2 in fighter, and 4 in thief rogue. For the first 6 levels, we're going to go all in on monk because it's very strong early game, because you get an extra attack as a bonus action after an unarmed or melee attack with a monk weapon, and this is very powerful early on before you get your extra attack. We stop at 6 for the monk because this gives us all of the essential monk abilities we're going to need, namely the open hand spec gets manifestation of mind, body, and soul at level 6, which gives you just extra 1d4 to unarmed attacks, and you get to pick from 3 different damage types. Next, we'll take 2 levels in fighter to get action surge. So at level 8 you'll have action surge. Action surge is a big part of what lets this build take out bosses quickly, because having extra attack plus action surge means you can potentially attempt to stun a target 4 times in one round, but also you'll be attacking 4 times at level 8 with all these attack bonuses that we're going to get later. We take rogue for the thief subclass, which gives you an extra bonus action, and we'll use that to do more flurry attacks, or alternatively a flurry followed by a bonus unarmed attack. The thief subclass also gets dash and disengage as a bonus action, so with 2 bonus actions we'll be able to do that while still attacking, and with some other monk abilities as well, like key restoration, we'll actually get another bonus attack. So we'll have a lot of flexibility there with movement and how we want to handle our action economy. Moving on to gear. Most of the gear I like to use for this build is in Act 1, so it hits the ground running pretty fast. To start off with, braces of defense are good. You can find those in the Apothecary's Cellar in the Blighted Village. They raise your AC by 2 as long as you aren't wearing armor or holding a shield, which we won't be as a monk. Also in the Blighted Village you can find the Haste Helm, which gives you 3 stacks of momentum on your first turn in combat, which will let you get in close to enemies right when combat starts. For an amulet, I like to use the Sentient Amulet due to its key restoration ability. You can find it in Grimforge near the Lava Elemental. You can get to that easily by using Featherfall and jumping down from the fast travel point that's at the top of Grimforge. Once you get to the Mountain Pass, I'd swap out the Braces of Defense for the Gloves of Cinder and Sizzle, which you can pick up from Lady Essler on the road to Rosymorn Monastery. These will give you an extra 1d4 fire damage to your unarmed attacks. From her you can also get the Graceful Cloth, which raises your dex by 2. That's going to increase our AC, which will be very helpful early on. With the Gloves of Defense and the Graceful Cloth, your AC can be pretty high at this point. For weapons, I like to start off using quarterstaffs, specifically ones that have additional elemental damage, and then later going fully unarmed once we've buffed up our unarmed attacks enough. At the beginning of Act 1, I've started to pick up the Watcher's Guide from the Dank Crypt, which is the same area that you can find Withers. This gives advantage to the next attack roll after you miss an attack with it, which early game I found to be very useful combined with the monk's extra unarmed attack as a bonus action. So you go in for a hit, and if you miss, which early game you might be doing quite a bit, then you can at least get advantage on your extra bonus action unarmed attack. After that, if you want to maximize lightning charges, because that's a build you're going for, you can get the Spell Sparkler from saving Counselor Floric and Joaquin's Rest, or pick up Decaphony from Lady Esther in the Mountain Pass, which does an additional 1d4 thunder damage. For boots, I typically go with the Swiresy shoes in Act 1 to start off with. These give extra jump range, which is useful because I'm often jumping around to get to enemies at different elevation. You can find these at the Goblin Trader in the Goblin Camp. In Act 2, I like to pick up the Evasive Shoes from Mattis at Last Light for the +1 to AC that they give, and I pick up the Cloak of Protection from the Quartermaster in Last Light for an additional +1 to AC. If you've got all that gear, your AC should be pretty high, maybe 19 or 20, by the time you're in Act 2, which will be very useful for that act. That covers the majority of the gear you're going to find for this build in Act 1 and 2, and that should get you all the way to Act 3, no problem. To bring it all together, your typical combat should involve your monk going after the enemy with the highest HP, or who is the biggest threat, and locking them down early in combat. You want to use the monk's mobility, and if you have the haste helm, momentum, to get to them as early as possible. To maximize damage you're going to do that enemy, you want to get them prone with Flurry of Blows Topple first, as this will give your other attacks advantage. Once they're prone, you can try to stun them with Stunning Strike so that they miss their next turn as well. Alright, that does it for this build guide. Thanks for watching.